The next thing I kind of want to talk about is um, kind of looking at these individual writing situations and zooming out and kind of thinking about the conversation as a whole and kind of seeing how each like small text, whether you're reading online or watching the news, it's all these little bitty writing situations that are part of a bigger conversation. And one of the things we're going to work on with the inquiry project is choosing a topic and trying to hear out the whole conversation. And that's why we kind of looked at the Burke's Parlor metaphor in text and thinking about the unending conversations that just sort of kind of go on. And I wanted to kind of look at an example using a topic that not very many people use anymore, which is why I like it. When I kind of like to think about conversations as sort of a round table with lots of people involved in the conversation. I think too often when we're thinking about an issue, we think about it as having sides, um, as it having like a for or against, a right or a wrong, a good or a bad, a yes or a no, which really kind of oversimplifies it and it makes the focus on like just two big opinions rather than on all of the people and the voices that are included in that conversation who have lots of opinions and concerns and types of evidence and text and all this gray area that really kind of, I guess, like zooms in and digs in and looks at the whole conversation in more of a complex way rather than just like the surface level of just these two kinds of opinions. So we're gonna do a model of a round table, a conversation. And I'm going to use violent video games in teens. And I want you to think about these X's as being kind of groups of people, maybe in this conversation, people who have a stake in the issue. They care about this issue for a specific reason. So one group of people that might be involved in a conversation about violent video games in teens might be parents. Especially if so if you're thinking about teens, so parents might be one group, and they might have an opinion that's, yes or no, maybe, or for or against, but for different reasons with their own stories and their own experiences. Distributors, people who sell video games, they have a stake and they're going to have a set of concerns and a voice for a very different reason than parents. The creators and designers, the people who want, license to make a living and be creative and have autonomy over what they do. News reporters, obviously, because they're the ones that are going to would be bringing this issue and events to the news and to the media. If you're thinking about like a scholarly voice, like who's going to be part of this conversation, like conducting the studies, that's where you get into your scholars, teachers, possibly administration, gamers themselves. And you could probably get into like politicians and lawmakers and, lots of other people that will be included. But I think, you kind of get the idea that this is more complex than just for or against or right or wrong. And all of these groups of people might have, they, are a part of this conversation for a specific reason with a certain stake. It affects them in some way. But they're also maybe have some differing opinion even among themselves. And if you think about how to go out and research and get these perspectives and these voices, you're going to find that they're producing lots of different kinds of texts that you would have to seek out in order to get this information. So I just did a couple as an example. So parents, you might see some of them in like blogs, interviews, documentaries. If you're looking for even if you did gamers or creators and distributors, you might find them in like gaming specific magazines, documentaries. News reporters would be in the news, obviously. Child psychologists, you might have like studies books, academic blogs, again, like documentaries kind of try to get, everybody. And then, teachers, you might find them on again, like interviews, magazine articles, education sites, that kind of stuff. But just so you can kind of see, like, these would be lots of different types of information and lots of little pieces of this conversation. And one of the things they talk about is, you wouldn't, in a regular conversation, you wouldn't, you know, walk up and start talking without hearing everybody out. That might be repetitive. And people might be confused because you really haven't heard what's going on or know, like, where the conversation stands and what's happening right now. And that's one of the things that's really important, is to think about the fact that, all of these groups of people have different levels of expertise. They have professional, scholarly, personal kinds of expertise. And it also, they all give you different angles, different ways of coming at this, and a different piece to a really complex puzzle. And our goal by the time we get to the digital essay is to have heard people at the table within your issue and be able to sort of take a space and add something to it, and have enough different types of text and different kinds of information and perspectives to really have a way to make a contribution to the conversation.